simpler we make the questions, maybe the inquiry will be more rewarding for the students. I don't know what how people think. Mm.
All right. So let me. So over here, anyone else who would like to add something? Maybe give an example. All right. So over here, I'll share my screen and give you an example of how we use these three factual and conceptual and debatable questions. So on your screens, if you see, I have shared the factual, the debatable, and the conceptual here. So a quick recap, and based on what Miss Lenny said, that there are these certain keywords with which we start these questions. So all the factual questions will mostly begin with what. So for example, if we take the unit of my school, we pick up a question like, what are the characteristics of my school? What kind of a routine do we follow in the day or in the school? Or what is my routine from the unit of from the ideal routine? Or what types of families exist? ¿Qué tipos de familia? So for example, if you're doing identities, or if you're doing the unit on my house is your house, we would ask these kind of factual questions to get the students to start thinking on what it is that they can talk about. What are the subtopics that we would begin with while doing this unit. Then second are the conceptual questions in which we use the concepts. So we can use, so these questions usually start with how or why, and they have to have a key or a related concept in them as a part of them, which will show you exactly which concept you are covering. So for example, let's take the unit of Home Sweet Home as an example, and how does culture influence the design of a house? Or how do festivals define the values of a society or our community when we are doing the unit on celebrations? And next is the debatable questions, which would usually start with do, is, should, or could, which we throw open to the students, which is usually preferred at the end of a unit, after the whole unit has been covered, the content has been shared with them. You try and end the unit. Most of the teachers, they prefer to end the unit with a debatable question, which can be used to identify and also see if the students have understood what the unit was aimed at. So for example, if we ask in the unit of healthy habits, are the new technologies harmful for health? So we get the students to think, reflect, give their opinions, and this also shows the various contents that they have covered. Are they able to express using the grammar that they have learned? Are they able to use the appropriate vocabulary? And these can also be used to make them write different text types, mainly focusing on your criteria C and D written, where you get them to answer these kind of questions in using the various text types that we have in our language. Any feedbacks or any comments? Any questions?
I have one, if that's okay. Sorry that I keep talking.
No, please.
Let me just put my video on, looking at a random icon. So for me, and then my doggy's here as well. What I do for mine is I actually sometimes use the concept in all three questions. So I nearly always for my units, even if it's concept they've done before, I have what is the concept for my factual. So what are systems? And they have to kind of define what a system is. And then it could be for your one, for example, how is a school a system? And then in the debatable, it could be the most important part of the system, the school system, are the pupils, or something like that. So that the concept is actually covered in all three areas. It works really nicely in design. I don't know if it works so well in languages, but definitely, like for me, always whenever I write my factual, I always straight away just do what is the concept, and it helps me get started with writing those as well.
All right. Okay. Anyone else? So we have another comment over here in which, yes, debatable questions can also begin with, like to what extent. Very nice. Ma'am, can we have an example, Miss Alicia, if you would like to give an example of a unit where you would have used a debatable question, like to what extent?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. I teach history here in Uruguay.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, one unit is identities, Britain and invaders. So we are studying like the Celts and the Romans and Anglo-Saxons and Vikings. And a debatable question can be, for example, factual can be, what is identity?
Mm-hmm.
And then a debatable question after you study all the invaders and settlers is, to what extent did all these tribes and everything influence British culture?
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice, interesting. Anyone else who would like to weigh in over here about the use of um, inquiry or any more doubts for the same? Yes, Miss Candy.
No, I was just, according to what Lenny said, I wanted to show you something that I give the students. I'm a very visual person, so I like I like to share this. And she was mentioning, I don't know, I put it in the Padlet because I don't think I can share my screen.
Let me just give you the rights to share. See if you can share it now.
Yeah, here it is. Okay, so this is what I like the students to see. Like I don't know, because I teach Spanish, it was very colorful. So taking the concepts that are focus of the unit, as you can see, well, this is Spanish. So we have empathy, point of view, and creativity. Creativity being the key concept, and I have the other two, which are the related concepts. Yeah, so based on those, as you know, we make the statement of inquiry. I have put here the translation for the French teachers as well. People can express empathy and points of view about the environment creatively. So that was the inquiry question that the students were going to, the statement of inquiry that they were going to explore. And from there, you can see each one of the questions will involve one of the concepts. So in the factual one, I have ¿qué formas lingüísticas y convenciones sociales? Well, this is for year 4, so it's a little bit more complex. So in the translation here of the factual questions, I have empathy, see? And in the conceptual question, I have point of view. And in the debatable question, this one is like, how can they express empathy creatively? To what extent, like the other lady was saying. So this is a way as well to frame the inquiry questions by incorporating the concepts into the inquiry questions. And that will help you as well with assessment, because then the summative assessment will be related directly to the conceptual understanding. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you so much for that visual representation. I hope this helped clarify any doubts that we had about the same. Do we have any more questions related to this topic?
So I have one question. So basically, while we introduce our unit, we begin with the factual questions, then with the passage of time, conceptual, and in the end, debatable, right?
This is usually the pattern which teachers follow. But when you move to the higher grades, when you move to the higher phases, for phase 3 and 4, probably it's great to start with the debatable questions, and then you build the factual questions and the conceptual questions in the process of the unit.
Right, because they have the skills and the abilities to answer that.
Exactly.
Right.
And using the debatable questions, they also develop the skills to express opinions, and I think it's a great way to start off a unit with a debate, to get to see exactly which level of vocabulary and expression are the students at, and what is it that you need to build on, what grammar is it that you need to build on through the unit to get them to the end point.
Okay.
It's just one perspective.
Okay, so one more doubt I have. Basically, while we introduce our unit to the Spanish students, first and second year, we give them the vocabulary sheet. As per my understanding, the best way would be they learn the vocabulary through the passage of the unit rather than they cram up or mug up the words. I think. What is your opinion regarding that? How do you give them the vocabulary?
Okay, so if I put in what I do, my strategy is that that when I introduce a topic, I give them quizlets related to the vocabulary, and what they do is that using flipped classroom, we give them. I keep giving them quizlets for little topics. They have to prepare that vocabulary, and they can play the games. And then when they come to the class, we move on to the question, and the vocabulary is already inbuilt.
All
So
right.
it goes in a very staggered manner, and the vocabulary is provided in a very scaffolded way. So I give them for example, if I'm doing the unit of my house, I start with giving them the vocabulary for parts of the house first. Then later we move on to objects in the house, then prepositions, followed by the places to see in the city, then weather and nature, and then in the end they put it all together to be able to talk about the place where they live. So scaffolded and used in the form of a flipped classroom.
Okay. Thank you so much.
But that's my strategy. I would love to hear from you all people. This is a session of sharing. Can I have more inputs?
So basically what I do is I put the vocabulary in Kahoot, which is the game which is liked by a lot of students,
Right.
and they enjoy at the same time and they learn through that game Kahoot. That's my strategy. Or sometimes a PPT presentation or a printed out worksheets in this way.
Right. I think Kahoot is globally a very enjoyable game played by the teachers and the students.
Right, exactly.
Yes, Miss Lenny.
There's one that's very similar. I just put it on the Padlet as well. It's called Quiz Is. And you kind of set it up the same way, like multiple choice questions, and you put the right answers. But unlike Kahoot, where they have to look at your screen, they follow along. They go to joinmyquiz.com and they put in the code that you give them, and then it shows the questions on their screens. And on your screen is like it shows you each student, how many they're getting right and wrong. This works really well for online learning because especially if you're having bad Wi-Fi or they can't, see your screen for some reason, they just do this on their own device. At the end, it tells you like which questions the most students struggled on, which were the easiest questions. So as soon as they finish the quizzes, you can use it for a review. And you can also send home like the link to practice. And it's cute, like it has little memes that come up in between every lesson, every question, and they can earn like power ups. So for example, they might earn a power up that the next question they get is worth double points. The kids get really competitive and really into it. So I recommend that one as well.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who would like to weigh in over here? Yes, Miss Fandy.
Yeah, no, talking about the online learning, I just discovered the Quizlet. You know how you do Quizlet Live and then you divide them into groups. So right now they're doing individually because I suppose it's remote learning, but I really enjoyed it. And we're doing it so they can compete in just by themselves, but all of the class at the same time individually. And it's really good fun. And the same thing, like at the end, you can see what they got wrong, and but I'm really glad they added that. Yeah,
you can do teams in quizzes as well.
Oh,
and it's nice because like I like doing that because sometimes like in my classes for computer science or coding, I have some kids who get 100% right every single time, and then other kids maybe phase 1 English, right? So this kind of balances out a lot, and they're really good at helping each other when they work in teams too.
Or maybe we can also, like we are using Zoom right now, we can use breakout rooms, and at the same time they can practice group activity, and we can enter in different rooms and check how they are performing. That's what I actually doing. Maybe it can work out.
It's actually an exciting time to be a language teacher with all these resources. Education Perfect as well, they open the platform. Is really good. Must be expensive, but right now it's free.
Right now, a lot of these educational websites are providing their resources for free. We even have in thinking for DP. If anybody uses it, that's also for free right now.
Sorry, which website? Can you please repeat for DP?
In thinking.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
In
Thank
thinking.
you.
All right. So I think we are ready to move on to the next burning question, which so many people posted. It was about teaching a concept along with the content. So the question was that how do we focus on the grammar? How do we ensure that while teaching the bigger global context, the grammar is also getting incorporated? How do you relate a concept with the whole grammar part? I would like to throw this open to anyone who would like to answer this question. How do you incorporate the whole global context while ensuring that the content is also covered?
I would love any grammar tips because my English grammar, even though it's my first language, sucks. So please, please, please share.
Okay. Anyone?
How do you do it? That's the part where the students need more scaffolding, and so lots of scaffolded practice of the concepts, embedding the grammar points. But I'm a bit of like an immersion advocate. Yeah, so just give them authentic language and let them discover the forms that are focus of the unit, and from there like give them practice. But yeah, this a lot of scaffolding and giving them a lot of authentic language, a lot of inputs.
Okay. Anyone else?
I usually teach them the grammar as a lesson, and make them write a paragraph about the same theme that we're studying. Let's say it's about family, so they can write about their family using the present simple, which describes facts, the way they live, what they eat. Let's say it's for grade 6, for example. So I would embed that grammar lesson within the theme that we're working on.
All right. And how do you incorporate the concept in the same?
It depends on the theme that we're working on. Let's say it's let's take family as an example. Cultural facts, how the family lives in a certain culture. How do they adapt to it? Let's say they would write a paragraph about that same theme using the grammar that was supposed to be studied in that lesson.
Okay. All right. Anyone else who would like to weigh in over here?
So adding into it, I would like to tell that while introducing any topic or any concept, basically what I do is I write any inquiry-based question or conceptual or debatable question, and I give open space to everyone. Like I make a mind map on the board. So I divide the students in the group. They write their own points. Then collecting the points from each and every group, I keep on writing on the board. So in the end, we will have a number of points related to the same thing, right? So that the students can know what are the opinion of other fellow members. And apart from that, regarding the introduction of grammar, whenever it's required, in the same way, vocabulary is introduced through the questions, and the grammar I teach on the separate side of the board, like after introducing the concept. That's my way, through the questions.
Yeah, same here. So for example, if I'll go back to the unit on, let's say, my home sweet home. So over here, I would. So how do I go about the whole unit? So for example, I take up the concept of culture about let's say how does the culture influence the design of the house. Okay, so over here the grammar that I would be using would be on the side written, and the students would know that these are the grammar topics that we would be covering. For example, I would use the prepositions, adjectives, the present tense, and let's say the imperfect tense, preterito imperfecto. I don't know what's that called in French. The vocabulary that I would be doing in the unit would be about places in the city, parts of the house, the weather and the nature and the means of transport. The text type that would be covered in the unit would be a letter, an email, and an advertisement. So and the concept would be culture. So putting them all together, when we are in the process of talking about the house in which we live, the grammar would be covered throughout the whole unit. So they start talking about the parts of the house and describing the house in which they are. So they start with the verbs to is, and so they start with the verb ser and être in French, and estar in Spanish, and the verb I in Spanish. They start with the present tense of the verbs of the activities that they do. Then slowly we move on to the imperfecto, about the using the imperfecto of how things used to be. So here we can also get them to do a little bit of comparison of, for example, in a text type, again in an email. So we can give them an authentic email saying that this friend has written to another that I have just shifted to the city, and this is the kind of house that I live in. This is the kind of street that we have, and it's so different from the house I used to have. So there they then start describing, I used to live in a village and there used to be so many things, and now we are in this. So this is just to start showing their comparison. So the grammar would be intricately threaded throughout the whole unit, and
Right.
the culture would be shared through videos or text types, different the authentic text types that we have. We would use that, and thereby threading the whole concept along with the whole context in the unit. I hope that's helpful. I think this is what we
Well,
do
actually, I
usually.
really appreciate your way of telling it, because maybe we can divide the board on the left hand side, the vocabulary, on the middle, the concept, and the right hand side, grammar. So that student can know if they want the vocabulary, they can pick up from the left side and the grammar from the right hand side and give their own opinion in the center. It's a very good idea. Thank you so much.
Happy to help him. It's very nice. Okay. So any other questions, any other comments or observations anyone would like to share over here? Yes, Miss Lenny. Miss Lenny?
I think my hand is still raised from
Oh,
before.
okay.
Grammar is definitely not my my area.
All right. Okay, so then moving on to the next one, which is criteria and criteria based evaluations. So over here in the burning questions, people wrote about understanding the strands better. So any particular strand that anybody that you're finding difficult or would need clarification on? Hello?
I think this chat, there's not as many people in, because when I tried to log in on my computer, it kept saying error, error, error. I had to log in on my iPad. So I think I've had an email from a couple of other people that are having the same issue. Just, if you want to answer, that will be on the recording, I guess. Though we have only got 5 minutes left.
Hello? I couldn't hear you, Miss Lenny.
Oh, I was just
Hello?
saying that lots of people couldn't get in because Zoom was having an error message. I couldn't get it on my laptop, but I'm in on my iPad.
Is it 404 error? Error 404?
I was getting error 300. I think they just updated a bunch of security features. So I just got an email from them, so that could be why. So I've added some stuff to the Padlet for the resources, but that's the only thing I can help with.
Okay, all right. So if nobody has questions about strands over here, then what do you suggest? Should we move on to the next?
Sorry to interrupt. Maybe
Yes,
you would like to tell a little bit on the strand 2. As per my understanding, basically strand 3 questions are related just to give your own opinion. What are your thoughts? And it can include comparison. So all the time we put debatable questions in strand 3, and in strand 2, author's purpose, what's inquiry, what is the type of text in strand 2, and in strand 1, all the facts based question, what, how, when. For criteria A may be based on the video and B on the text. Is it right? Just to
absolutely.
confirm.
You couldn't have put it in a clearer manner. So I'll
Thank
just brush up a little bit on strand 3. for example, you said that that you give that the student is supposed to give his or her opinion. So now what happens here is that we've seen that the kind of questions that teachers make, they ask students about their opinions, but what happens is that the students end up writing a narrative. So which is not exactly what MYP expects. So what happens is that when you ask them to give their opinions, or when you ask them to give a comparison, or express their thoughts or feelings, make it a point to ask them to write using the information from the stimulus. So for example, I'm doing, let's say, routine, and my strand 3 question would be that how different is your routine from Augustine's routine in the video. So give your opinion or your comparison using information from the video. So this is to see and understand that have they understood the information from the video while giving a comparison, because otherwise people simply end up giving a narrative of my routine is so and so. So it's not related to the video. So then in that section, they would get a 0. If there is no comparison. If they say, for example, Augustine wakes up at 6, but I wake up at 8, that's comparison. I wake up at 6, I take a bath, 0.
Right. So they are using connectors also for the comparison and their own opinion. That's actually
and that is their and that is their expression of comparison. That's how we get to know that they have understood the information, and relating to that they are putting in their opinion and expression or habits or routines. That's so that's in strand 3. So whenever you are framing questions for strand 3, ensure that you ask them in the end using present your points using the information from the stimulus, from the video, from the text, and that we train them accordingly.
Right.
That you express comparisons using that. In strand 2, again, when we ask them about the concepts or what we call conventions, we ask them about the author's purpose of writing, or the author's identify the appropriate audience for this kind of a video or this kind of a text. Here again, we ask them to justify their choice of their choice using information from the stimulus. So for example, if they say that the text type, for example, is an email, they have to give justifications from the text to show that it's an email because of, and then you mention the conventions. If they're talking about the intention of the author, then again they have to give justifications using words or quotes from the video or from the text.
Okay. So one more doubt in
Yes.
strand 2 question. I can understand if it is criteria B, reading comprehension, they can tell it's an email, article, blog, brochure, whatever. So, but if we talk about criteria A, video, ¿qué tipo de video es este? What kind of video is it?
What kind of a video is, okay?
Right. So in that way, what could be the possible answers?
So the possible answers for types of video would be that it's a documentary, or it's an informative video, or it's an interview, or it's what other type of videos are there? I'm forgetting. So
telenovela. Telenovela, documental.
Exactly. Or it's a hello, Miss Radhika. Okay. Okay, I thought you wanted to say something.
Is going to add a video blog, interview.
Right. So these are the kind of videos that would be there, and then they explain why do you think you give justifications for the type of video that is there.
Right.
Following the conventions. And they have to be very clear about why it's a video blog, or why is it an interview, or why is it a documentary.
Okay. If you allow me one more question, please.
Please. This is why we are all here.
Right. Strand 2 question. If you talk, what is the audience for this type of text, audiovisual text, or the video? So if we talk about the video is based on the unit environment. So basically students end up writing that the audience is all the people because we live in the environment. So what other things can be written in the audience? All the peoples in the society, because environment always affect us, that's why. If any video is related to the topic environment, what can be the different types of the audience?
Okay, Miss Anshu, would you like to answer this?
Actually, I teach Hindi. Hi everyone. So, what I do, whatever I teach in unit, so whatever text type and all I have taught, so my audience always based on what we have done in themes already. So suppose if I taught um, who's the audience for this environment, but you have to show particular topic. You can't show that like big idea ki these are the things are based on the environment. Whether you can show it's a pollution or anything it can be. So they will be, I think they will be recognized as ki um, the audience will be this video, maybe the person who doesn't care about the environment or who is not aware. They are educated but they are taking it casually. It can be like it's a big picture, but depend how what the content you have taught them. And while teaching or unit, you have to keep teaching them, okay, recognize context, purpose, audience. So when you are when the unit come partially half unit or whatever unit you are planning, you just plan your submitter first. So you should know which kind of first you have to answer if you, as a teacher what you will give the answer. Then only you can expect what they will give answer. So for me, I think when you plan your summative or formative, you should be very specific, be clear ki what kind of audience it can be, because you cannot show them a big picture.
Right. Thank you.
I would like to give an example over here. Again, I like to explain through examples. For example, we have the student has just seen a video on healthy eating habits, or let's say the Mediterranean diet, right? So the question can be about who is the appropriate audience for this kind of a video, or if the video has let's take another specific example. So if the video talks about the right breakfasts to be fed to children, right? Now the appropriate audience for this would be, the answer has to be specific. For example, this the appropriate audience for this kind of a video would be young mothers, or children between the ages of so and so, which depends on the video, for which exactly age group is the video focusing on. And then you give the justification. I feel that this is appropriate for this kind of an audience because it talks about breakfasts for children. So young mothers would be very interested in watching this video because it would give them information about what to feed to their kids. So the answers to these kind of audience and intention has to be very specific to the data or the facts provided in the stimulus.
Right. But if we talk about the healthy routine, normally we can always relate talking that the audience is everyone, all the people living in the world, because healthy food is very important for everyone, right? So irrespective of the content which is introduced in the video, they can always introduce in a generalized way, I think.
Okay, Miss Lenny, you raised your hand.
I just put something in the Padlet. It's something I've used for design and I've used with IMS, but it might be useful for your higher phases. It is something that's made by Oxfam and it's called Planning Research for Influence. So if your students are doing campaigns, for example, something to do with human impact in the environment, this is a really nice document, because the first part is, what are you trying to do? Like, are you trying to change people's minds? Are you trying to change the government's practices? Are you trying to change agenda? And the next section is really nice, tells you who are you trying to influence and how do you do it. So for example, if you're influencing civil servants, you need to have data, technical difficulties, technical information. If you are influencing activists, you need a human face to the story, or heroes and villains. So I think it's really good for thinking about audience and who things are aimed at, but also writing for that audience. Again, it might not be something suitable for MFL, but you can even do it if you're analyzing an image, right? Like an image campaign, who is this image aimed at? And if it's factual, maybe it's the government or someone. If it's emotional, it's the general public, etc. So if you look at that, I love that document. And my friend has found it looking through like Oxfam's. It's not for education, it's for like policymakers or for activists. So hopefully it's helpful.
All right, thank you. Getting back to your question, Kartar. So what we've seen, from what we've seen in our department meetings and when we take feedback is that an answer which says this video is suitable for everyone is usually discouraged. We would
Right.
rather have the students be very specific in who exactly the audience would be. That, for example, this audio is suitable for the Spanish students or French students looking forward to, and then you try and broaden exactly what the interest is. But rather than saying that this is suitable for everyone, somehow we try and discourage that.
Right, because that concept can be introduced in all the videos or the audios or the paragraphs comprehension.
Mhm.
But you're right, maybe students should be going deeper into the concept, and they should be reflecting more upon the audience, what other possibilities are there.
Exactly. Yes, Miss Fandy, you raised your hand.
So I was going to say this is an area that not only students but also teachers need a lot of support with. And sometimes I find that the teachers are willing to ask these questions at the end of the unit during the summative assessment, but the students didn't get the chance to like explore exactly very different texts with similar kind of questions by the time they got to the summative. So I think we do really, as a language teachers, we need to teach them this explicitly. Like, yeah, they're gonna know it's a documentary, but what makes it? What are the features that make it a documentary? They want to. They obviously know that these are for Spanish speakers, and like you're saying, yeah, you gotta specify and why. What in the text? Actually, I always ask the students to give me the evidence.
Justify.
Yes, the evidence that makes you say that this text is for that age bracket, these people in what Spanish-speaking country. Because if it's an authentic text that I adapted, and it's not there, I make sure I add it so they will might find some clues as well, so they can either when they are interpreting the question or by just inferencing, they can find the answer to those questions.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Miss Fandy. Anyone else who would like to add anything to it? Any observations? Any examples? Or any more doubts on the strands? All right. So let's move on to the next, which is criteria C and criteria D. I would like to know from all of you, how do you assess criteria C and criteria D? What we do is that we take criteria C and D written separately, and we take criteria C and D spoken separately. So for each assessment, we take, for each assessment, for example, if we've given them a written task, we would be assessing the criteria C, which is their ability to express the message, identify the conventions, and then from the same written task, we would also be judging criteria D, which is their grammar and their construction and their usage of of the language. And the same process is then repeated for their oral task. Is this how you do it, or do we have any different ways of assessing these two criteria? Anyone?
That's exactly how we do.
Uh-huh.
We take oral and the written, and we assess criteria C and D for the oral, and criteria C and D for the written task for every unit. That's exactly how we do.
Yeah, we also separate them because of the written skill and the spoken skill seem to have two different components. So we alternate when C&D oral, C&D written.
Right. I think it's the same for everyone. Then this is what we do. Some unit demands a written assessment more than an oral assessment, and some unit focuses only on focuses mostly on the spoken part. So we also do it the same. I hope. Yes, Ms. Fanny.
No, I was going to say, unless like if they have, for example, a video to produce and then they will add the subtitles, that can count as a little bit of writing. But I guess with the new move to multimodality, we're going to have to be integrating them a little bit more.
Yes, I think then it's completely different. Then the criteria C is very different, and D is would be a separate assessment altogether. So That would be with the new guide, so it will be a different experience altogether. All right. Anything else over here? Any other observations, questions, doubts? I must say, people respond a little. Ms. Rupali, would you like to add in anything? No?
Excuse me?
No, Miss
Oh.
Rupali, I thought she unmuted herself, so maybe I thought she wanted to say something. Okay, anyways. So the next is formal assessments while e-teaching, which was one of the 6 questions that I received. Which was this question was asked 6 times as part of the burning questions. How are we taking formal assessments while taking online classes? What are the various platforms that we use? I would like to take ideas and strategies from all of you. If you would like to share, please.
So recently, today only, 2 days before, I introduced a platform called uh, classroommarker.com. So basically in that platform, I can create a quiz based on different questions like true, false, match the column, and they can write their own answer. And the good thing is that we can always create username and password for the students. We can set the time limit in the quiz with the password, and when will the quiz be available to the students. So that's a wonderful thing, because the corrections are already always done by the system, and the students will have the result at the end of the quiz. And apart from that, the results are in deep details, like what was the incorrect answer and what was the correct answer, how you should have performed, what were the errors done by you. I think the platform is classroommarker.com. I'm
Could
going
you
to write
please,
it down in the chat.
yeah, could you please share that the name in the Padlet?
Sure.
So, Mr. Qatar, I do have a question regarding this. So the right and wrong answers that you're saying can only apply if the questions are option based, MCQs.
Right. So there are different
What?
varieties. It can be match the columns. It can be MCQs. It can be true, false. A lot of varieties are there, the questions. Or it can be one word answer. For example, what is the opposite of good? The only answer is bad. So if the students are going to write bad, then only they will get point, else they will not get any other point. So you should explore the platform. It's a wonderful platform.
Okay, and any more? Yes, Miss Natasha.
Right. So we are using 3 platforms in our school right now. Kahoot, Moodle, and Edpuzzle are 3 platforms using which we are actually, by the end of the month, we've just entered Zoom sessions and online teaching, this time opening the academic session in this way. So in May, we are all expected to use these platforms. We've used it before, but now because of the current situation, we will be using it perhaps more regularly. So I'll just repeat the platforms. It's Kahoot, Moodle, and Edpuzzle.
Moodle and Edpuzzle. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any others?
Lenny had posted about flip grades. It will not mark the work for you, but that's where the students can ask videos with interactive activities, when they can post little bit of videos and then comment on them as well, response to them. So it's very interactive. And my school is also using Zoom, and we're using Education Perfect, and definitely all the Google and Microsoft Teams. There is a lot that you can do there with the quizzes as well. But I would say Flipgrid, Education Perfect, yeah, these websites. I lost the Padlet.
Okay, I have a question here.
Yes, please.
My question is, because I have designed some quizzes on Classroom as well, but my question is, how can you be sure that they do not cheat?
Academic honesty, right? That is what I was about to ask also. How do you ensure academic honesty when you are allowing them to use the internet and their phones while responding to your assessments?
But they can even talk to each other on the phone and ask, how did you do this or how did you do that? And then you don't know how far did they do the task alone.
Right. Miss
So
Natasha?
what I would like to add my strategy. Sorry, yes.
All right. I totally agree. This is a challenge at the moment. However, as it's already been mentioned, academic honesty is something we talk about, and not all assessments we tell them are graded. So, what we mean by that is we have a concept of taking 3 out of 5 assessments, for example. In the beginning, the first 2 3 assessments, we don't grade them. We explain to them that this is just a feedback process, and we do tell them that yes, it's an option for you, that you can check a meaning online through a system, through SpanishDict.com or Google or Word reference. We know that it's an opportunity, and we lay it out very clearly in the beginning that yes, you can do it. However, this will give us only a false feedback. And if there's a teacher, I think that you know all the answers, then I will completely move on to the next topic. So this requires, of course, at the end of this, there is still a possibility that children, as well as adults, could probably look into answers somewhere else. But this is a feedback. The moment we tell them it's not graded, which it is not, then in the first 2 3 assessments they get used to it. But then, of course, there is that 1% chance. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. That strategy actually might work. Very nice. Yes, I would like to make a note of that. Yes, Mr. Katari wanted to share something.
So like I was connecting the quiz, at the same time I shared the link of the quiz username and password. They were able to log in, but the class was going on the Zoom application. So I asked them to switch on the video and the microphones also, so that I can know that they are not typing, they are not talking to anyone, and I am vigilating them in the online way. So if I find anyone that the video is switched off, I can ask him at the same time. And the other strategy was like the test was introduced for 30 minutes, and in the test there were 35 questions. So if you are going to use translator or any dictionary, it will take a lot of time. So it's better not to use and focus on the questions directly, because you don't want to get more points. I think it can be a strategy.
All right. I'm making a separate column on on the Padlet for adding the online platforms that we were talking about. Please do put in your tools that you use over here. In the meantime, I'll also share the platforms which we have discussed to be used to take online assessments. One of them is exam.net. Exam.net. Over here you can have a timed assessment, and the one feature that exam.net allows is that the student cannot copy and paste. So it discourages the students from plagiarism. So over here the students may in that time use Google Translate, but they will not be able to copy and paste their answers onto the answer boxes in exam.net. Over here you can have multiple you can have MCQs, and you can also have long answers or short answers depending on the kind of assessment that you are taking. Yes, it's exam.net. It's there. I'll put it all on the Padlet right after this. Then the next is you can also use timed Google Forms. So I'm sure all of us have used Google Forms in some way or the other, but there is a feature there where you can make the Google form accessible from only a certain time to a certain time, and ensure that the students are attempting that assessment, that exam, only from let's say 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. The form will not be accessible before that or after that. This way you ensure that the child is doing the summative or doing the assessment in only 1 hour. He does not get any extra time, and there is no way that he can cheat in terms of taking more time to answer the same question. One second. Just excuse me, sorry. All right, so over here you can use I will put it on the Padlet. Over here you can use the add-on feature of you can use the add-on feature of Timify, and you can also use the feature of form limiter.
Sorry, what is the name of the platform?
Form. It's all on Google Forms.
Okay, right.
This is for Google Forms using timed for timed assessments. So you can so you can add the time limit. Let me share the screenshot in the classroom. Wait a second. So in the Google Classroom, from here you can add your add-ons. In the add-on, you enter the feature, the name of form limiter. When you use form limiter, when you activate it, you can, at the bottom, if you see, you can select the date and time for your assessment. So for example, I select the date of 2nd April and the time would be 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. The form or the assessment or the questions would not be available before or after that time. You can also have a maximum number of responses, but this is not relevant to summatives. This is for another context in which you only want the first 40 responses or the first 8 responses. When you're planning trips, you can use this for the first 10 applicants will only be able to, so you can move, so you can use that feature later for another context, but you can use the date and time feature and ensure that that it's a timed assessment. But again, over here, academic honesty is going to be a question, because you don't know if the student is copying and pasting from somewhere, but it will take them time to type the question in Google Translator or type the answer in the Google Translator and get the answer, copy it, paste it. They only have that 1 hour, so I don't think they would rather waste their time looking for translations. So making a timed assessment helps in reducing and rather discouraging academic dishonesty. Apart from that, we also have Edpuzzle, as somebody mentioned, where you have the questions as in when you are watching the video for criteria A assessments. Edpuzzle works best. You have any type of question that you want, you can put it in between at the exact point in the video and make it multiple questions or short answer or long answer, and the student has no choice but to answer exactly at that point in that section. Anybody else who has anything to add? No? All right, then moving on to the last section, which people wanted to ask was about standardization and moderation. So what exactly is the process that you all follow for standardization or moderation? I would really like to hear your ideas and strategies. Anyone? No? I had so many questions for standardization and moderation. All right, then I'll simply throw it across to people and ask them to share their ideas. Miss Marina, let's start with you. How do you do standardization? Miss Marina, Miss Alicia. No?
Sorry, I was I was writing in Padlet, so I missed the question.
Okay, okay, so I was asking about your strategy of conducting moderation and standardization.
Okay, here in Uruguay, it's only been 2 weeks since we've been doing this. So,
okay.
So far, we just make Zoom conferences, and as I was writing in Zoom, we have learned a new technique, let's say, in which you, using Loom, you can record your voice if you don't want to appear online. So you can record, like you share your screen like in Zoom, and you can give instructions or explaining a task or showing a presentation where you can present a topic. Remember that I'm not teaching a language, I'm teaching content. So that is why perhaps my experience is different from yours. So in history, for example, you have to present a topic or try to raise curiosity. And so that is why you can do that. You can record your own voice, like presenting the task or reading something, and then you have your Zoom conference, and then you clear the any doubts they may have, and then they just know the grades they are going to have, because as I post the task in Classroom, they have an assigned grades for that. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Actually, I was talking about I was talking about standardization and moderation. That is, if you how do you so when we moderate, so when we moderate or when we do standardization, what we do is that we share the answer scripts of the child with another teacher who's teaching the same level or who's teaching the same language. And before sharing the answer script with the teacher, we do not write anything on it, and but we assess it on our own, and we keep our own notes. For example, I'm assessing a written task of a child, and I feel that he should be getting a 5 in criteria C and a 6 in criteria D, but I don't write anything on the sheet. I make my own notes separately, and then I share the same sheet with another teacher who's teaching Spanish, or in your case French or English, and then I ask the teacher to correct. I share the rubrics with her. She gives in her feedback, and she gives me her marks. For example, she is giving the child a C 6 and a D 7. So then we sit together. So then we sit together and we decide why has she given a 5 and why have I given a 6? So why has she given a 7 and why have I given lesser or more? We discuss based on the task specific clarifications on the rubrics, and then we come to a consensus that over here the child should get a 5 in criteria C or D, so and so. So that is the process.
I mistook your question. I was thinking about this particularly situation we are living on in that time, like
we
online classes. So we do that at school, but in my case, I just do it with I teach senior 1 and 2, and I do it with the history teacher in senior 3 and 4. So what she expects the students to be knowing when they get there. So we permanently are coordinating those aspects twice a month.
All right, Miss Natasha, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just actually had a question regarding the moderation that you were talking about. Does this happen for every assessment they do, or how does it work?
No, this doesn't happen for every assessment. This actually, so what happens is that we like to keep it as a practice. So for example, we've taken criteria A summative, and I'm teaching grade 9, for example, phase 3 to 4. So I've taken a criteria A. So I will give, let's say, 2 to 3 of my student work to the other teacher, and she will give 2 to 3 of her work to me.
Okay.
So for example, I have 20 students in the class. I'll pick one good, one average, one bad, and share it with her. She will she will pick a sample of 3 to 4 from her class and share with me, and then we discuss the rates or the grades that we have given to the children.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So this way we ensure that we are on the same platform while giving grades to our kids.
Mm.
So since this becomes a habit, uh, accordingly, giving grades in the final exam also becomes easier. We are all on the same page. We are used to discussing and correcting and giving the exact grade in the end, so that we don't have a lot of moderation which happens from IB, and we don't have a huge difference in the grades that we have given or that they have given.
Okay, we have a little different procedure.
Okay.
What we do is, so the assessment has taken place, and we have teachers of our own subject. So we have 3 Spanish teachers right now,
Right, right.
and mostly are teaching to grade 3, the same grade. Most of them are like 2 teachers will teach 1 grade, or 3 teachers will teach 1 grade. It's like that. And in that case, the day the assessment takes place,
Hmm.
we decide on how we are going to sort of, on what basis, or what the rubric is, or what basis we're going to give marks or assessments or grades, or where is it going to get deducted, where is it, on what points are important. So we discuss everything, and then we begin the corrections or assessments, or depending on whatever format of assessment we've taken. So we do it before, so in we all have it mentally noted and in our notebooks, that okay, this question or this assessment or this tool has to be assessed keeping these criteria. If it is so and so, you get this grade. If you get so and so, it is this grade. And that's how we begin. And then of course, along the way, if we get confused or we're not sure about something, then we consult each other. That is what we are doing.
Right. So, this is one way of keeping an answer key ready, prepared for the summative before you take the
Mm.
summative
Mm.
discussion. So, for example, you and I are teaching grade 6 criteria B.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mm.
we have an
Mm.
answer key ready, but that answer key is based on
Mm.
our expectations of what the students would write.
Mm.
What
True.
happens is,
True.
when the assessment actually happens,
Mm.
uh, there are times when we get different answers from what we've expected. Maybe not in grade
Mhm.
6, but in the higher grades, what happens is that
Yeah.
the students end up writing on a very different perspective, which we as teachers from this side cannot expect. So it's great to have an answer key ready, but also when you have done correcting, it's always good
Mm.
to have those 3 4 samples shared with the other
Mhm.
teacher to take her perspective into mind, and just ensure that the student does not suffer in the end because of my own personal judgment or my own personal perspective.
Yeah, so in this case, what we do is, and I agree with what you're talking about,
Hmm.
especially when we go into senior grades and the
Senior grades.
answers are more subjective and essay and they're more open-ended. In that case, we have a discussion, like a weekly discussion, that okay, this is what we came across, or we probably just have telephonic conversations sometimes, just to
Right.
sort of save on time, or sometimes it's just 2 or 3 points, so we just confirm that okay, if they've used third person instead of
Right.
first person, but essentially communicated what they have to, we just overall deduct some sort of, we give them some, okay, we don't deduct all marks, but we deduct like maybe 1 mark for overall. So this is something we do as and when the corrections or assessments are going on.
Right. Perfect.
Okay.
That's another way of doing it. Any other ideas, any other questions, any other queries, people, before we end this session? Anyone would like to ask any
So
topic
I
that I
just
haven't
wanted to know.
that we haven't covered?
Hi,
Yes. Okay.
can you hear me? So just
Yes,
wanted to
yes,
know all
Karthik.
the recording will be available on the website.
Yes, it would be available
I
on the website along with the Padlet link too.
All right. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Thank you so much. If nobody has any more questions, I think we are good to end this session.
Just one thing, this
Yes, Natasha.
website, what website are we talking about here? Where the recording will be available with the Padlet?
That has been shared by Miss Lenny. Just a second, I'll share that link with you. Just give me a second, please.
Sure.
In the meantime, anyone else who has something to share, please feel free. It's an open forum. I haven't heard voices of a few people in the group. I'll just share the link where the videos would be available.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Have you shared it on the chat?
No, I'm still looking for it. Just give me a second.
Okay, sure.
All right. This is the link. I found it. I'll post it on.
Great.
Do you want me to post it on the Padlet or in the chat over here?
I think on the chat would be nice.
Okay. This is where you will be able to see all the Zooms that have been that have happened before, and you can also take a
Oh,
look at
great.
this.
Great. Thank you so much, Ananta. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope this session was helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you
Stay
very much.
safe.
Muchas
Thank you so much.
gracias.
Gracias.
Thank
Buenas
you
noches.
so much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next.
Thank you. Now I hear your voice.
Yes, I'm a French teacher, so that's why I
Okay.
can't speak a lot of English. So,
But I hope what the discussions we had were of some help to you.
yes, helpful.
Helpful? Okay. So
Yes,
is there so all right, feel free to send me an email. You have my emails with you. You can share queries. Yes, Miss Julia, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yes, Miss Julia, we can. Miss Julia? Hello, Miss Julia? Oh, okay. She can only type. Okay.
Okay, Ananta, hasta luego. Gracias. Buenas noches.
Hasta luego. Adiós. Muchas gracias, señor.
Adiós. Adiós. De nada, igualmente. Chao.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Miss Ananta, I think people logged in and they slept off. You can remove them.
Yes, ma'am.
I think these 3 people, they logged in and they slept off, I think.
No, ma'am. Miss Julia is still there. All right. I'll end this now. Thank you. Bye-bye.